It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Hello. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are ya? We got a great show for you today, but not a lot of time to chit-chat at the beginning. The interview was a full interview, and we've got a song that I want to play. This song, actually, I discovered this band on Twitter. When you're on the internet and it's one of those deals where you click on this and you end up over here, it's like you start looking for something, you're looking for music, and then you end up looking at garden tools, and then you end up looking at cereal, and then you end up looking at, news items. It just, one thing connects to another, to another, to another. This is exactly what happened with this particular thing. And I found this band and played their music, and I thought, wow, that's really good. I got one of their songs, contacted them, and they were nice enough to send us a song. So the band is called Falling Awake. Falling Awake began creating music in 2013 and has revitalized the pop-punk genre with well-crafted modern songs. The two-man band actively engages with social media followers and YouTube fans, interacting on topics that their community cares about. The band's latest album, Constants and Variables, brought them into the regional spotlight, and a new album is coming soon. Here is Falling Awake and 17.
Take it slowly, hold my hand. Brace yourself, begin to feel this surrender. I surrender. I'm sweeping ashes of our friends. I feel your breath and feel my heart cease to beat. Why can't you say we were 17? You meant so much, but dreams are all fading. I felt it had to end. We made it almost over and take the best of this, blow it up and save it for the rest. The rest, live your life, 'cause this was the best of life. Save your time and move yourself forward and help me forget my angel. Rewind, please, slowly. Take my life and pick my bones clean. My angel. We were 17. You meant so much, but dreams are all fading. I felt it had to end. We made it almost over and take the best of this, blow it up and save it for the rest. The rest, love your life, 'cause this was the best of life.
Hey, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
He was born into a family of amateur radio operators and was exposed to electronics from birth. At age 8, he checked out a book from the elementary school library and built from scratch a 2-tube audio amplifier, assembling all the components and making his first project. At age 15, he went to work as a production supervisor in the electronics assembly profession. After 5 years as a production supervisor, he went to work for a Houston-based communications engineering company, and then started on with Mobil Oil in the engineering department. He soon left Mobil and started his own businesses and created and championed many systems built for the World Trade Center, British Petroleum, Conoco, Dow Chemicals, Hewlett-Packard, and NASA. He started building content and talent to start an international Internet Protocol television network and has been putting together very unique marketing plans, dealer networks, interfaces with Universal Studios, and 6,000 titles of content so far. His network will be providing news unlike any current broadcasting network does. He is the founder of Forecast Broadcasting Network, based in Durango, Colorado, which he started in 2013. He is also a renowned risk assessment CEO who works with Fortune 100 companies. He has also designed a perfect, luxurious 5-star safe house for those who may want to provide maximum protection for their loved ones. Okay, please welcome Jerry McMullin. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Hello, Douglas. I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Oh, very good. Very good. I was looking over your bio just before we got on the air, and it is massive. You have got all kinds of stuff on here. I think you take the prize for the longest, biggest bio that I've ever received because it's enormous.
That's my name, Jacked Up Jerry.
And I want to talk to you about some of the points on here. The first one, which I thought was kind of interesting, was it says you were born into a family of amateur radio operators. Now, was that what they used to call ham radio back in the day?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's true.
So what was that all about? I mean, I can remember as a kid. Can I ask you your age? Can I ask how old you are?
I am 60.
Okay, so you're a little, I'm 54, so we're kind of in the same ballpark age-wise. But I can remember the guys, they'd have these huge towers in front of their house, and then maybe they'd have something like these big antennas on their car. They could do it from the car, something like that. What was that about? Was that just about somebody having like a small operating terrestrial radio station?
Well, back then, I guess to compare it today, a lot of people spend time on the internet, make friends socially. Back in my earlier day, before the internet was ever invented, much less the microprocessor and a computer, amateur radio has been around for eons. And it was a way to meet people, not only within your community, but also within the state, within the country, and within the world. And it would depend upon what frequency and what time of day or night it was and what the ionosphere was up to what were you trying to cater to? I loved to used to talk to the Aussies. And so I would get on at a certain time and I'd talk to the Aussies. And then there's times I'd get on to Bird Station Antarctica and I would literally run phone patch traffic for them. That's back in the day before they even had the ability to have sat phones. So it was basically a hobby. I mean, it was a hobby, but I also went into it commercially because I had a passion for communications, and I still do. And that's one of the things that we're doing now is getting into television. A little bit different twist than what I came from. But, my own father proposed to marry my mother over the ham radio to her father. That's how crazy it was. And I had cousins and uncles and everything else. And every Sunday morning we'd get on the radio and we would have a kind of a roundtable discussion, kind of like you would, say on NBC's Face the Nation. Everybody would just talk and catch up on the weekly news, so to speak, in the family.
I didn't know that those had that kind of a range. I thought it was just sort of people talking similar to CB radios in the 70s, where you just had kind of local people within a 20-mile radius or something. I didn't know.
No, you did have that as well, and that was usually in the FM band, which is higher in frequency, much higher. And when you're working foreign stuff, it's in the real low frequencies. So it's more ground based and it's ionospheric based, where you literally take off, and depending on the angle of radiation of your antenna, you would bounce off the ionosphere and it would come back down to the earth. And depending on where it was coming down at and what was going on with the ionosphere would dictate where you were talking to at a specific time.
Wow.
So it's an interesting hobby. I mean, now that the internet's here, a lot of people are, going that way, but you had to know Morse code and all kinds of stuff in that day. I don't know that you have to anymore, but it was a lot of fun growing up. It kept me out of some trouble.
Does anybody even use Morse code anymore?
Oh, yeah, sure. And that's what I always loved, because it was good for the brain, because you've got to really have good, reflexes in your fingers and in your head. And, I mean, I could literally sit there and just fly on Morse code and talk to somebody in the room at the same time. So it was almost like your brain was in your wrist once you got very proficient at it. So I used to get a kick out of doing that.
15, you started working as a production supervisor in the electronics assembly, and then there's like a whole list of companies that you were working. You started your own company. What were you doing for World Trade Center, British Petroleum, Conoco, Dow Chemical?
I was there at Disaster Communications, where we would monitor, and they also would monitor any kind of impending threats. And then we built a distributive engine, software-based, that would go out and communicate. Let's say BP had 4,000 employees in the biggest refinery in the country that they owned, and they had an H2S, hydrogen sulfide, leak. Obviously, you don't want your employees to get in the wake of that, because you have one breath of that and you're dead. So we would broadcast immediately meteorology data that we collected on site, that we talked to, our computers did. And we would distribute that along with the alarm. It doesn't have to be H2S, it could be a lot of things. And we sent that out to 4,000 people within 2 seconds. And that would tell them which way not to go, which way to go, what the event was. And then we even had emitted diode signs, kind of like you see up at Wall Street, in front of a lot of the is it NBC, I believe it is, has a big ticker tape board above it. I forget which one it is, but we used to talk to signs, not quite that big, but we'd talk to signs that were at gates. And we did all that wirelessly. And we would tell people not to come into the plant. It's shutdown is in place. We give you instructions, scrolling instructions of where to go. We talked to phones. We did text to speech. We did email, we did fax, we did, the whole gamut. Basically, it was the shotgun approach. If you had a burglar coming into your home and you had a hall closet and you had a 22 or a 12 gauge to choose from, which one would you probably grab? And that was always my thought. And that's the way I always think. So I always grabbed the 12 gauge. So, I'm a believer in redundancy technologies. Because I'm an advocate of Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So you should always have backups to backups. And unfortunately, most of our college graduates today have not lived through traumatic experiences like I did. You may have been probably too young to remember the Bay of Pigs. I'm sure you remember the event, but I remember it extremely well, because I was living in Houston at the time, and everybody thought they were going to be nuked. And we were not far from it, actually. Everybody was on edge. And even in the Baptist church, they were going to church 7 days a week, and they were wailing and crying and weeping. And I was like, good grief, what's wrong with these people? I mean, I was about that age. We didn't quite get the whole concept. But when I got older, I realized that that's why everybody was at church, was trying to pray those missiles not to be launched. So,
well, I do remember as a first grader, second grader, having to do the run, duck, and cover, and finding
hold your head.
under your desks in elementary school. And,
like that was really going to help us.
Yeah, right, exactly. And the bomb shelter, the famous bomb shelter, the yellow and black signs. Yeah.
They've shut them all down. It's crazy, except for, the ones that the executive branch have. But as far as consumers concerned, they're pretty much on their own. And, the Cold War never went over. And people bought the lie that it did. But, I said from the day that the wall came down, when Reagan said, tear down that wall, I said, people, if y'all believe that, y'all are so stupid. It's like taking a leopard, shaving it with a pair of shears all the way down to its skin, thinking that when his hair grows back out, he's not going to have spots. If you were brought up, you're a product of your environment. If you were brought up under a communist regime or under the Islamic rule of law, Sharia law or whatever, that always stays with you. That's what you were taught. And so that becomes a warden of the mind. And the only way that you can get over that is to assassinate the wardens that are in your mind. And you can do that in several different ways. But, you can play with very strong magnetics and so forth, and do a lot of things to your mind. But I've always been around communications my whole life, whether it was through public safety, radio, data, police, fire, EMS. And then we got into the disaster side of the software side, where we served the World Trade Center and NASA and BP, Conoco, and, Valero, and a whole list of them. And now I'm going into international protocol television, and we should be on the real stuff will be up on the air hopefully within the next 30 days. And we will be able to sell content, which is like HBO, Showtime, NBC, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing that we're doing is that we're selling dealerships, because we have a unique approach to tourism, to news, because our news will be completely different than any other news you've ever heard because of our sources. And it'll be, travel centric. And we're looking for dealers that we supply audio and video equipment with, wireless mics and lighting and so forth. And then for every ambiance ad or mood ad or a radio talk ad, it doesn't matter what kind of ad it is, but any kind of ad they sell, they keep 60% of the revenue. All they have to do is load it to a Dropbox. Then we edit it, and then we air it on, a variety of different shows. So we have that opportunity available for those that, are looking for work or looking for a job. We have financing available and so forth. And that's the new venture that I'm on. And hopefully the last one, because by then I'll probably be dead. But it goes fast, I got to tell you.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you. I can remember as a kid waiting for Christmas that last week, and that last week was just agony, and it took like what seemed like 100 years to get 1 week until Christmas Day. And now a week goes by seemingly like in 24 hours.
Exactly.
It's kind of maddening. I don't know why it does that.
I stand the wait. I always peak. And 1 year I peaked when I was in high school, and I saw the word pistol grip. And I thought, oh my God, they bought me a 22 or whatever, because I was into, duck hunting and everything at that time. And so I went to school telling all my buddies I was getting a gun for Christmas. Well, of course, Christmas morning, I was the first present I went after, and it was a pistol-gripped hair dryer to blow dry my hair. And I ate crow for a long time on that one.
Oh, I bet.
So it pays just to wait for Christmas morning.
I want to go back to your Internet Protocol TV network a little bit, because I'm trying to figure out exactly, this is not like a Netflix.
It's similar to like a Netflix, but it is okay. It's a lot different in the sense that we're going to offer private channels to governments, to school districts, to FM radio stations, et cetera, to make them international. To allow, and not only, a government doesn't need to be international, but let's say they want to have a town hall meeting, or they want to have a chamber meeting, or there's a special whiteout from the snow meeting that the mayor needs to tell everybody to stay off the street or whatever, they have the ability to propagate that video to a dedicated channel within that county or city or whatever the case may be. And so they have their own direct feed to the citizens. And then when it comes to schools, the coach or somebody affiliated with the coach could be out shooting a football game of the high schoolers. And then once the game is over and grandma and grandpa got to see it up in Detroit while it was being played, let's say in Texas. And let's say all of a sudden there's a school lockdown, which is getting to be pretty prevalent within the country. The principal has access, and he doesn't even have to have the camera. He can actually use his iPad or his Android and shoot video of his face talking and saying there has been a lockdown at such and such a school. This is what's going on and so forth. And the parents get some relief from that instead of wanting to beat the doors down and steal their kids out. And then it can also be used for inclement weather reports from the superintendent of the school district. And so we're taking it a lot further. And then there's all kinds of industrial uses that we're going to be doing. So in answer to your question, yes, it is. But at the same time, it's a totally different concept. But you can get media and movies and everything else from it as well. And the dealer has the ability to not only sell ads, he has the ability to sell content, and he has the ability to sell other dealerships. So it's a good way for a person to make some good money that's recurring, and recurring revenue, which is the Gillette and Schick model, has always been my model in any business that I've ever been in. So if you want to go goof off for 3 days, you're still making money those 3 days you're not working. That's what this product basically is as well, and can be for the dealers that want to participate in it. We have 5,000 of them that we're trying to sell, and we just started last week. So this is a good time to be getting in on it.
So to be a dealer, first of all, what am I getting if I just said I wanted to be a dealer with this?
What you get is you get the network, and then you get all your audio, all your video, all your lighting, all your SD-RAM cards, sound equipment. You get card stock with unique QR codes for each dealer's area of interest, and we use that as a tourism spotlight. And they get training, they get support, and then they have the ability to load us and make 60% of their money back every month. Are
they setting up a studio?
We're already in a studio.
No, I mean you said that the dealer has provided lighting
No. He doesn't have to set up a studio. He actually goes out on the street. Basically, he's more of a soldier. He or she,
a roaming
and they're
reporter.
out looking for different type of ads, either a mood ad in a restaurant or a mood ad in a hotel, so that as people are traveling and they go to the forecast site, they'll be able to see the actual mood within a particular establishment and make a decision. Oh, and there's just a bunch of old geriatrics in there like Jerry, or hey, there's a bunch of 30-year-olds in there. Let's go check it out. And so that kind of gives them a lead even before they ever get there. They can be in Tokyo making their plans to come to, say, Colorado and go on and view that on the web before they ever get here. So they can see what they want to check out once they get here.
It sounds to me like it's kind of a professional grade of Periscope.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So what would it cost if somebody wanted to buy the package?
Well,
start
the normal price is $25,000 one-time fee, and right now for the next couple of weeks we're doing them for $5,000 off. So that's for $20,000.
$20,000. Okay.
And then we have financing available. We of course take all major credit cards as well, and we work with people because we're not living in the greatest economy of all times, and nor do I see that getting any better anytime soon. And so, we have to be able to adapt to try to assist people. But our goal is to get all the content up and running in the next 30 days. And then at the same time, ramp up the dealers. So we're in that mode right now. So it's a good time to jump in at a ground floor opportunity, because it's not going to be your standard Netflix. And it's what we do offer in entertainment will be cheaper and less expensive, but the same kind of content.
So would people on the other end who want to watch the content, do they have to subscribe?
Well, if it was for HBO or Showtime, they would. But for general broadcasting, I have to sit down and make that list up myself of what I want to give away. Then there's another list that I'll make up that, let's say it's $3.95 a month. And then there will be, the premier list that may be $6 a month. And then, of course, if they want Showtime or anything like that, they pay per view on that. So it's extremely similar. So it gives a dealer an opportunity to sell a whole gamut of things. If you sit down and put the pencil to it, they can make a lot of money. And they can be independent. They don't have anybody nagging them. Did you meet your quota today? All they have to do basically is just be a soldier and go out and hit the street in their city and make sales, basically is what they are. Is there a cross between sales and videography? So that's what we're looking for in the dealership program.
So let me just try to picture this. So the dealer is going to go out and video stuff, right?
But he doesn't necessarily have to sell mood videos. Let's say he just wants to participate one day a week into peddling that type of ad. So he does. And he has his camera with him in case they sign a contract. And he goes and he gets it out of his vehicle, her vehicle. Well, let's say all of a sudden then he just wants to concentrate on talk show ads or pre-recorded ads or banner ads that go on the channel, on the face of your iPad or television or whatever. He has the ability to sell all these ads and he retains 60% of that ad revenue because that's his client, because he got that client. It doesn't have to be all ambiance or mood video, but that does make a big difference. I got to be honest with you. When you see, when you watch the video of some of the different, up here, there's saloons and their pubs, because I live in the Old West. And so we still have saloons from the 1800s here, and they still play ragtime music. And, you feel like Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp are looking over your shoulder. And so you can go in there and capture that kind of ambiance that most people in America don't even know exist. And a lot of them are still into the Louis L'Amour books, and they love the Old West, and they love John Wayne movies and so forth. We're right in the middle of that. John Wayne filmed a lot of his stuff right here. And the other thing we want to do several years down the road is open a motion picture studio. And part of it will be dedicated to John Wayne, because John Wayne always wanted a studio in Southwest Colorado, but he got sick with cancer, as you know, and he never saw that come to fruition. But we've already been talking to others about that, and that's down the road. But we'd love to start shooting motion pictures, and then if we weren't shooting something, we could lease it out to Sony or Universal or whoever, and they could come out and shoot whatever they're shooting. Because we are in the canyon lands, we're in around all the mountains, and we're in the grassy plains of the farming community. Our tax rate is 2.9% versus LA's at 9.5%. We have no union labor. We're right on top of the Navajo and Ute reservation. We have plenty of labor that we can get, and they're not unionized. And so they can learn a new trade. It's a great place to do that for motion pictures. And so we're already planning on all that. I've been talking to Sony and everything. They see a bunch of synergies doing that here in Colorado. Hopefully I make it to that age.
Well, it sounds very exciting. I'm just trying to put it together in my head exactly what it is, and it just sounds like it's
hard to articulate. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, there is a lot to it, and it sounds like it's kind of a hybrid of traditional television with, like we said, Netflix, and with something like Periscope, and it's kind of all mixed together into one thing.
Right. And a dealer can come to school and can learn every one of the peripheral ideas that we have, and he can sell those as well to governments, to school districts, to FM radio stations, or what have you. Plus, there's more. And he can sell those, and he gets revenue off of that monthly as well. Or he can even make money off of content, like the bigger news feeds or the National Geographics and so forth. So there's a lot for them to sell. The dealership itself, if he makes 10% on it, if he sells a couple of those, that's $2,500 a pop. We're paying him 10% on that. We're paying him 60% on ad revenue. And there's a ton of different types of ads. So that can accumulate fast. You just have to be a mover and a shaker and go out and make stuff happen. And as you can tell by my bio, those companies that I dealt with, I was a mover and a shaker to get some of those accounts because, trust me, I wasn't the only one out there. I was up against the Honeywells and Toshibas and Motorola's, and I just had to be better. And it's not always easy to be better. But I had we had those accounts for years. World Trade Center was a tragic day in my life because not only was it a loss of friends and a customer, it was also a loss of revenue. But I got to be honest with you, from a secular humanistic perspective, that was probably the golden egg, having that account as long as we did, because it did represent global commerce, and we penetrated that. We had a great relationship with them, and that day will never go away in my mind. And someone, we were talking a while ago about the Bay of Pigs and so forth. I've lived through a lot of tragic situations, and so I think different than the college kid that hasn't been through them. And so that's why I believe in redundant technologies. That's why I believe in having your data or your studio inside of a nuclear rated facility, because it's quieter, it's safer. And that's where we're at right now. We're actually in a nuclear rated facility, and it's also biologically rated. So we're out of sight, out of mind, out in the middle of nowhere. And so if I say something that offends, someone on the East Coast, and the CIA starts coming after me, they got to get in here first. So,
so you're in a bunker of some sort. Yeah,
very much so. It's been on National Geographic, NBC, Bloomberg, Russian Times, and UK Mirror, and about 60 others. But it's a unique place. It was a unique project. I undertook the project. You see, I used to build hot rods. Before hot rods, I built high-speed bicycles back in the day before the flood. And then I got into hot rods. And then all of a sudden, I decided for some crazy notion to take this project on an AT&T property, and I'd rebuild it. Oh, my God, it took me 7 years. About killed me. We're finished, building it out in this particular section. Then we started on a north wing that we've poured the foundation for. And we want to go out to the south as well. And then that will house celebrities while they're here filming or, taping or what have you, and give them a 5-star experience. And they don't have to drive back into the city. They can enjoy the views of the San Juan Mountains that are absolutely gorgeous. And so many people come from all over the world just to drive that loop in September when the leaves are changing colors. So we also want to be the news for Southwest Colorado and for New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona, because we're 20 minutes from all those states, because we're in 4 corners. So we could get film credits from all 4 states if we shoot in each state. We could do the news in all 4 states, in the corners, that is, because our closest news is 300 miles away. And so you never see a newscaster here, period. They don't exist. So we do that, and then all of a sudden, Forecast becomes the channel that everybody out here watches. Then they start to see, well, good grief, they've got, Gunsmoke's on now, or they've got Bonanza, and then they've got, political satire shows, and they've got, then I can, if I want to, I can watch Showtime. I can watch these other movie channels, and we become their one-stop shop, so to speak. We offer that cheaper than the competition does. That's what our mission is at the moment. And been working on it a couple of years. And there's a lot more to it than what I've even explained. That gets into some software that we had designed. It's politically based, where the voice of the populace is heard again by their government. And it's all textually done, but converted to speech automatically. where it calls their representative or the executive branch, whoever they're trying to go after. They can file electronic petitions, and it's based on a social engine, much like Facebook on steroids. One of their friends likes that petition, then guess what it does? It calls them up as well. It just assigns a different ticket number and a different name to that ticket. So instead of your emails just going into email jail and, really never getting any truth out of your representative, it's just a canned email. This way, you just take their switchboard and make it look like spaghetti. You tie it up. That's it's another project. That's a subset of my show. My show's Twisted Nation, and I'm Jacked Up Jerry, if you can tell. And so we shoot that show, and then we'll be online on the numeric number for CAST.TV. In about 30 days, you'll see the network up. Right now, you just see some beta software that's sitting there. We'll be doing that, and if anybody's interested in what we're doing, they can email me at the number 4, not FOUR, but the number 4, CAST Jerry, JERRY, at gmail.com, or they can call at 970-529-0901 and pretty much live with that. It goes everywhere I go, even to bed. So, because we're dealing with people all over the world, you pretty much have to have it with you at all times because it's different time zones everywhere. That's what our newest venture is. Great time to get involved. If you know anybody, pass it along. We'll pay you a commission. So,
all right. I want to go back to your bunker just for a minute, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I want to ask you a little bit about it because I find this kind of interesting. We were talking about fallout shelters, and you mentioned the Bay of Pigs, and then there was the famous Missiles of October, which was another point in history where we were close to nuclear war, perhaps. Now, one of the things on here, it says that the building is nuclear rated. How do you determine that?
Well, when it was designed, which was when it was built in 1964, they looked at the most probable target sites as Cheyenne Mountain, Denver. Denver employs the second largest amount of government employees other than Washington. That's where the bunch of the government workers work in Denver. So you had Denver, you had Cheyenne Mountain, not too far from Denver, which is where NORAD is, where they do all the strategic air command control and monitoring. Then you've got Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and then you've got Phoenix. And so everything is at least 300 miles from here. So they thought, well, if something was to be dropped on Albuquerque or Denver, what would happen 300 miles away? What would the pressure wave be? What would the radiation levels be? And that's what dictated whether it was above ground, below ground, whether it was cinder, whether it was poured concrete with massive steel, whether it was monolithic, meaning that it would float in the earth if there was any movement in the earth from an earthquake, or we're not on any seismic events like California, or the building would float like a boat in the water in the dirt.
Oh.
So it stays intact. And I've seen pictures of all the steel. I've actually seen the steel because I had a new door put in, and the guy that did it built Hard Rock out in Las Vegas, and redid the Caesar's Palace, did the addition. So he'd been in the construction industry for years in big construction. When he got out here and he was trying to cut out like an inch on each side of the door jamb, it took him one whole day with one of those abrasive rock saws that runs on a big gas engine. He says, my God, I've been doing this my whole life. He says, I've never seen anything like this in my life. It was so much steel inside that concrete. And the concrete is anywhere from 12 to 15 inches thick, and in some places thicker. It was built to, withstand a significant amount of pressure. But the one thing that's nice is that you have mountain ranges all around you from, that are going to protect you from Phoenix. They're going to protect you from Santa Fe or Albuquerque or Denver or what have you. So you're already going to get some relief. And then, whatever comes at you, the building takes care of. I mean, it's so thick and so quiet that even when the tower gets struck by lightning, which it does quite often in the summertime, you being inside the building, the lights don't dim because of the grounding system's phenomenal. And secondly, you don't even hear the thunder. It's that crazy. So when people say, well, I came over and I knocked on your door. I said, when you come over to this place, you need to take a sledgehammer to the door. I won't hear it. It's just an interesting place. But I came here not because I'm a prepper. I came here because I was making sure that after the Trade Center event that I could sustain communications with all of my other clients and be proactive and have the best data solution to protect their data and to stay on the air so that I could save lives and save property. That was the main reason for coming here. And then, all beknownst to me, I become a doomsday prepper, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what it was. They told me what it was, and they filmed me as such. But I was really just a normal Joe that, takes things seriously, and I'm passionate about what I do, and I was passionate about taking care of my customers. And that's why I bought this place, was for that reason. And the reason I went all solar wasn't because I was totally, I am an independent-minded guy, yes, and I do love the independence of solar and wind. But the main reason I did that is when Katrina blew in New Orleans, it's pretty much wiped out the gas supplies all over the United States.
Right.
And so we can hardly get any gas. And then if you just have fossil fuel generation for backup, if the grid was to go down here, all you had is a generator, let's say, and if you couldn't get gas for it, it doesn't do you any good. So I thought all that through, and then I designed the solar and wind system for the place. And that was a 2-year project in of itself. We did all that. And so this entire facility, as we speak to you right now, is totally running off the sun. And we're one of the few places in America, I get a laugh out of you on this one, that has a solar operated bidet in the bathroom. And it's the talk, of all the women folk who come by and visit at times. They go in there, they're freaking out, because the seat's warm, and then it, washes you and all that other stuff, dries you and everything. That's all solar based. And then the
pump is solar for the water jets?
Everything. Yes, everything is powered by the sun. Water jets, motion pictures. We have all high definition theater. All that stuff runs off the sun.
So you're using solar cell collectors.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask how big this bunker is? This place is?
It's 4,277 square feet, and it's on 2.07 acres, and it's one of the highest points in this area. It was high because AT&T needed their microwave shot back in the day to clear obstacles, and the advent of fiber, all that changed. They still have hot microwave sites, but most everything's gone to fiber for now.
You're not underground.
No, this particular facility is above ground.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let's see. You have one north of Fort Collins, just on the other side of the state line, that is underground because its proximity to Denver was much closer. So it was underground. Now, if you get out into Montana and Wyoming, and a lot of those spots, they're made out of cinder block. This one here was poured on site, and even the ceilings, of course, are concrete. So they had to build massive jack stands to hold all the forms because the conduits were even poured within the concrete. It was a feat. I mean, these guys back then were just animals when it came to construction and engineering because they built these things like tanks. They don't do that anymore. Doing good if you have a steel building and maybe 2 or 3 inches of insulation that any bullet will go through, even a BB gun for that matter. In a lot of places, they use aggregate 4-inch pea gravel type facilities that are, not very big. They're big enough for 1 or 2 guys to be inside working on equipment. But back in the day, these places had tons of equipment. And it was back in the day of tubes. They had to cool all of that heat that they were generating. So the air compressors here, or air conditioning system compressors, have 400 pounds of R22, if you can imagine. Your house has about 5 pounds.
Yeah.
This place has 400. And so when it is summertime here, and it's 90 outside, which we don't have too many days that are above the 90s, but I did it one day. I think it was 92. I took my laser thermometer and I left the air conditioner on for, 20, 30 minutes. And I measured the air coming out of the vent. It was 38 degrees. And the room was at about 52 at that moment, and which is a little bit cold. But I was just, testing it. So it's a lot more than just an air conditioner. It's a freaking chiller. So
well, yeah, it's like a meat locker, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And which is great for networking because you always want to keep your computers cooler because they operate better that way. But it's just an amazing feat that to see, as a nation, how we used to build things and compared to how we build them now. We've gone from that mentality of build it to last forever, like the Coliseum, overseas, versus just a throwaway society. We'll just buy a new one, throw it away.
Well, everything has kind of gone like that. I mean, not just building, but you look at even the houses that were built before World War II, and then look at the ones that were built after. That's why anybody who's buying upscale property in Manhattan, they always want a pre-war building because they were just made so much better.
Oh, yes.
And now even music is gone disposable because it can just be computer generated.
Right. And I've watched a lot of musicians. We had Sonny Cool out here from Parliament Funkadelics, George Clinton's group, and they're literally writing music on their iPhones. And then they'll put their vocals on top of that. And I'm like, good grief. I mean, they don't even need a studio half the time anymore.
No.
They can do it right there while they're having coffee at Starbucks with their headphones on. And then when they get back, then they'll add their vocals and voila, there's your album. Let's cut a bunch of them.
Yeah, we can just make 10 albums in one day and call it a day.
It's nuts. The whole world has changed. And, if you think about the newspaper industry versus, Drudge or Fox or CNN or whatever, you just see everything transitioning, and it's really kind of creepy to think what's getting ready to happen in the next few years with, a cashless society. They're getting into the automated debit cards now that have the microprocessors on them. And of course, you've got Applied Technologies that have been working on the implantable RFID technologies. And at some point, one of the recent new legislations that was passed is a bill called the Enhanced E911 Protocol. And what that's going to do, it's going to mandate that cellular carriers install more and more and more hardware so that regardless of your cell phone being in the GPS mode on or off, it won't matter. They will be able to track you, period, through all this new mandated, legislation. And they've also been experimenting out in LA in some of the high rises that, let's say there's a bad guy on the 30th floor and they can literally tell what floor, what room, and exactly where he's standing. They take a shot at him outside the wall. That's how close they've got it. So there's a lot of technologies that kind of scary in the next few years with RFID and walking by, wireless modems and all this kind of stuff that are going to see it. They're going to say, oh, geez, Douglas is over here at the Denver Intercontinental Airport and it looks like he's walking to terminal number 24. It's just crazy where it's going. I wouldn't be surprised, and I say this somewhat in a joking manner, but in some respects, but it more than likely might come true. When it's all said and done, our toilets will be browser-based and count whether it was a liquid flush or a substance flush, and your sewer bill will reflect either one. I just think that's where it's all headed. It's nuts.
It's interesting how, George Orwell's book and even things like Star Trek, the original Star Trek in the 60s, where things that were on that show that were supposedly fantasy, we now have. Every home in America has it. We've all got monitors on our desks. We've all got those little communicators now.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's amazing.
Then the next generation sci-fi, like something like The Matrix Or there was that other movie called Wired, where everybody had a chip implanted in their head.
That's coming quick.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is there. It's a reality at this point, right?
It's been there. It's been there for over a decade. They've been using it in animals to track them, but they're going to mandate it into the humanoid species probably within the next couple of years. And that's getting a little bit overstepping the line, in my opinion. People don't need to know where I'm at. They don't need to know where you're at. It's none of their damn business. So,
well, I agree. And, you might as well take the Constitution and just flush it down the toilet at that point.
I know. That's one of my biggest fears in the next few months is that the War Powers Act may be enacted by executive order and there won't be an election. And then if you go into the War Powers Act, if you've ever studied it, that gives the president of the United States pretty much free leash to do anything. And he's already got free leash for that. Or he has, but I mean, it's even worse under the War Powers Act. So I'm hoping I'm just having bad pizza thoughts at night, but in my dreams. But I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that happen. I mean, this whole political race has really shown the American citizens how distraught and how divided we are as a nation.
Well, I agree. I haven't seen an election like this ever.
No.
It's really, the underbelly is showing for everybody.
It is. What's scary about that is, we're no longer under any weights and measures system in the dollar, except it's a fiat currency, so it's based on the full faith of the United States government. The one thing that Donald Trump has proven is there's not too many people with a lot of faith in their government. And our foreign policy sucks. So there's not a lot of foreigners that have a lot of faith in the dollar either. And so my question is, shouldn't the dollar start reflecting that at some time instead of propping it up with more QE? These are all interesting times that we live in. It's basically, we're in uncharted water right now. So anything could happen at any moment for that matter, just like we saw the day of the Trade Center. We know that the Syrian refugees, AKA terrorists, are coming in as the guise of terrorism. They've been training for years for this. They're being let in, and you know why they're being let in. I mean, they're tearing up Europe to pieces right now.
Yeah.
The rape rate in Sweden has gone up 1,432%, I believe it is, in the last 2 months. Germany's a wreck. Norway is just about giving in to them, and they're here waiting to be deployed. It's going to be an interesting time for show and tell. I'm just going to wave at them out of my bulletproof glass.
That's what I was going to ask you about your bunker. Did it have windows?
There's only two, and they're in a room that is isolated from the core, and they are massive. I bought them out of Switzerland, and they also have the Batman type shutters that come down over them at night, and steel shutters, and then the glass itself, is rated up to a 44 mag, and of course you shoot a 50 through it, it's going to go through it, but how many people are going to shoot you with a 50 around here? But the concrete, and that's just really a sunroom in a conference area. But the rest of the place, good luck. Even with a nuclear tipped 50 cal round, you wouldn't make it through the concrete. So it's just too massive. And it's been setting for 55 years or whatever it is. And so it's not just a five sacker. It's hard stuff. It's really been an interesting project, but you come in here and you turn on all the alarms. Of course, there's infrared cameras everywhere that film the place day and night and capture license plates and so forth. But then we've got strobe monitoring. That strobes come on if there's someone breaching the property, and it just goes on and on and on. It was a lot of fun putting it all together, because it was an accumulation of 35 plus years of commercial versus amateur radio type, technologies and things that you learned. And let's just do this one big last throw and let's do this project. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, no, let's start television now that we finished this one. So,
is there any companies that would make something like this, or is this a custom job, one at a time?
well, this is unique. I mean, everybody can build a network, but we're doing a lot of unique things that do crossovers to, our disaster business.
I meant the bunker. Can you like go to some place that they say, we'll build you one like this?
Oh, if you had the money, if you were to do this one today with all the concrete and steel, it'd be about $13 million.
Right.
If you're up for it, sure, but it's a lot of work, and I'd hate to be the poor concrete guy. I'd like to be the concrete company, but I don't want to be the guy doing the concrete work.
Was the concrete all brought in with the trucks, or was it like
Actually,
preformed?
These aren't tilt-up walls that are poured. Everything was poured on site, and that's why everything is tied together. The ceiling's tied in, and that's what makes it monolithic. And the slab's 5 foot thick, solid, not pier. It's solid, and there's a ground bus down at the 5 foot level that runs around the entire building, with ground rods maybe every 10 feet. And then that hooks into another ring ground that is at about 10 feet in elevation in the entire building that ties all conduits and door jams and everything together. And we covered all that up with wood trim. And then all that ties into the real tower ground system, which is down about 150 feet in the ground. Those ground rods are. And the steel from the tower goes down about 70 feet in the ground on 4 legs. So it's a massive structure. It looks like something out of Star Wars. And you can be up on top of it, huge winds, and the thing doesn't even move.
Is there a picture of it somewhere online?
I can send you one.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah. Jerry, we are out of time, unfortunately. We have used up the whole hour of the show. Can you tell us quickly about your radio broadcast, please?
You can listen to my show, Jacked Up Jerry, Twisted Nation, and my co-host is out of L.A. He's a broadcast journalist. He was born in Mumbai. Very, very intelligent man when it comes to geopolitics and to just everything and politically, period. And he makes for a really good show. And of course, I'm on there just stirring it up usually.
So this is a political talk show you're doing?
Yeah, that's it. I've been doing it I started it out in Universal in California at John Lovitz Theater, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. And then I brought it here, and we've done a lot of other shows too, and still will. But that's the show that I typically am always on, and unless I'm out of town or something. But a lot of fun. I'm sure you enjoy it as well, being on radio, and just it's a good way to communicate and get educational material to people and to encourage people. And the one thing that I can say to anybody is, I was a horrible student in school. And when I was 8 years old, I was already into electronics. And so that captivated my thoughts. English and math, I mean, who needed it? Is what I thought. And so all through junior high and all throughout high school, I hardly ever slept because I was on the radio at night. You can do anything you put your mind to it. It's just a matter of thought. And here's the biggest secret. You got to be tenacious in spirit. If you start something, you just got to keep pushing the trees down with the big, bulldozer until they fall down. And if they, are so resilient, you just back up and hit them again. And you just keep doing that until you move it out of the way. And that's the way it is in starting a business or excelling in your hobby or whatever it is that you just have to keep learning and you have to keep pushing. And, it never ends until the day you die. But it keeps you, I think, alive longer to keep your mind active.
I think I agree with you on that one. I want to thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
I'm always available, and thank you for having me on, Douglas.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guest, Jerry McMullin, and thank you to Falling Awake for their music. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
To the